Hello, I am trying this frequently asked questions video under some dire tech circumstances, including chickens crowing in the background, and I'm not entirely sure that my phone is going to stay where I have placed it, and Callie is huffing and puffing in the background because she doesn't want to be close up in the office. Other than that, this should be really fun. So, okay, what are some of the frequently asked questions that I get? Probably number one is, where do I get my ideas? Everywhere. They come from all over. The first book that I wrote set in Wyoming came from driving on a road and seeing this little vignette, a woman in a business suit talking to a guy in cowboy gear. One on one side of the fence, a gate, and the other on the other. And they were clearly not happy with each other. And yet there was some spark there. And I can't tell you what it was. I drove past pretty quickly. It was just this impression. And from that impression, I created the book, Not a Family Man. And the woman in the business suit ended up being, in my version, the new owner of the ranch, and the guy in the cowboy clothes was the ranch foreman, and they were not in sync at the beginning. So that was one story. My second book, I was in a pub in Ireland, and I was talking to this older gentleman who said to me, Ireland's greatest export has always been its youth. And it started me thinking. I understood why that was true in the 1800s, the potato famine at various times where the Irish couldn't own land, couldn't speak their native language, couldn't have education, their records were burnt, there were a lot of reasons for them not to want to stay there. But why in the current times would that be true? And that from that question, I started research and talking to some then current day immigrants from Ireland to the U.S. And a character came from that. And from that character came who would be the right woman for him, or who would be a good match for him. So it usually starts with something that triggers my thinking and my imagination, and then I ask a lot of questions. I have that in common with Elizabeth Margaret Danaher and the Caught Dead in Wyoming series, or she has it in common with me. News stories, something I see, people I talk to, as I said, questions a lot. The most recent release in the Secret Sleuth series, which is Death on Covert Circle, that started from a conversation with an employee at a grocery store. And I thought, and I just, you ask one question, that leads to another question, which leads to an answer, which leads to another question, and it just keeps growing. So that then leads to another question I get a lot about: how do I write? Do I outline? Do I plan ahead? Do I have a schedule? No, no, and no. I am what is sometimes called in writing a pantser, as in I write by the seat of my pants. I do not outline. I have tried that previously in a lot of other books, and it never worked well for me. In fact, I lost stories. I never finished writing them. And a large part of it is just the way my mind works, I guess. Once I've done an outline, what I've discovered is my mind says, okay, we finished that one, let's go tell another story. So it just becomes drudgery to write that story. So instead, what I tend to do is write what I know as I know it. It's in pieces. It's not chronological. I just keep collecting these pieces and trying to put them in roughly chronological order of what I think the story is going to be, but then I'm prepared to move them around too. And it comes to a point where I have enough that I start feeling guilty that if I don't do the drudgery, if I don't do the hard work to finish the book, I've left these characters who I've come to care about greatly in pieces all over this document, and I can't do that. So I write from, you know, just this spark of imagination and then a lot of guilt. And that is how I write. And if you are an aspiring writer or an established writer, but you write somewhat similarly and you have gotten a lot of grief about, oh, you have to outline, that's the only way you'll ever write, that's much more efficient, I beg to differ. I don't think it's more efficient. I think people who outline count only their writing time. They don't then count the time it took them to outline. And those of us who write more organically, we're doing both the thinking, the planning, the outlining, and the writing at the same time. So it looks like it's taking us longer. It's just that we're doing it in one piece, where people who outline do it in two pieces, and they only count one piece as their writing time. And I have a book that I wrote called Survival Kit for Writers Who Don't Write Right. And if you need some tips or some moral support because you don't write right, I hope you will get it. It's on the major vendors. At the major vendors, it's $2.99. On my website, it's 99 cents. And the reason I have it that way is I need to recoup my expenses in creating the book. But then I wanted it to be available for as many people as I possibly could. So again, Survival Kit for Writers Who Don't Write Right. If you're a reader, you're probably not interested in the strange things that go on in writers' heads. Speaking of heads, this is not a question that I get, but it's one I have now. Is my hair really that red? So I look at this, and I would say no, it's not really this red. For some reason, this video is making it much more red than it is in real life, unless I'm sitting in the sun. Okay, I've gotten a number of questions lately about writing in the age of COVID-19. And the first one is, you know, how are you doing? Well, I'm doing great, thank you. So is Callie, although she's having a really hard time because all these people are walking past on the sidewalk. And I don't know if you're aware, but she is in charge of the universe. And so she is trying to organize them and herd them and get them all organized. And they just are not cooperating. So high level of frustration in the Callie world. The writing, you know, it's harder right now. It's strange because those of us who are full-time writers, the daily schedule is not that different. We're used to being home alone, buyers, you know, a lot. Now, people with families that are suddenly at home, that's difficult. They are really adjusting. I'm talking about the writers. There have been a number of people asking about noise canceling headphones to try to get past the crowd that they're not used to. For me, I'm used to being home alone during the day, and this is not that different. And I don't go very many places because I always should be writing, even if I'm not actually writing. I'm feeling like I should be writing, so I tend to not go out on jaunts. But it's very distracting, as I'm sure all of you know. And two of the areas that I'm finding the most difficult with, the first one is cleaning, which is not my favorite thing in the world. But because of not having the wonderful people who usually come and clean for me if I don't clean, I don't have a clean house. And I like a clean house. I don't like cleaning, but I like a clean house. So I'm cleaning more. Not a great use of my time, I don't think. But The other factor is I'm cleaning things I've never thought I would clean before. You know, I'm sure you all know exactly what it is. You're suddenly thinking, oh, I need to disinfect that, where you never, ever, ever thought about it before. The other thing is news. And as a lot of you know, as a longtime journalist, worked 23 years for the Washington Post as an editor. And it's very hard for me to not tune in the news, and not only tune into the news, but hop from network to network and source to source and see, oh, they're doing it this way and they're doing it that way. And when things really started to pop, I was in London for a book event, and I was watching the BBC over there and also Sky News, and was comparing over there too. It was really fascinating to see how they covered not only the coronavirus, but how they then viewed the United States. And since I've been back, I've still been watching the BBC. I haven't been able to pick up Sky News. So as you can tell from this, I have to, turn off the television, stop looking at the internet. You need to work on writing. There's a point, yes, you need to be informed, and I think that's very important. But there's also diminishing returns, and I am way past the point of diminishing returns. Another question is, am I going to include COVID-19 and the coronavirus in the books that I'm writing? I have thought about this, and I'm working right now on Reaction Shot, which will be released in May, and it takes place in June. This is in the Caught Dead in Wyoming series, book 9. So I could include it. I could include the COVID-19 and the events surrounding this. I've decided not to, and the reason is things are changing so fast. So I could write the book now and write elements into the book now and base it on what's happening now. This is mid-April, and they could be out of date by mid-May, much less June or whenever people read the book. So in my fiction world of Cottonwood County, Wyoming, COVID-19 will not have struck yet in Reaction Shot. I will wait and see with subsequent books and how things settle and where we are with the virus. And then I got the question, also I think related to COVID-19, of whether, because I was staying home, which I was previously, I could write the book, I could release it early. Would I release it early and be done early? No. No. Go back and see the part about being distracted and cleaning more. And in fairness, I am just not early. I'm not early in my life. I'm not early in books. I know when things close. I never know when they open. I need deadlines to make me let go of things. So no, I'm not going to be early. But I appreciate the sentiment behind that very much, that somebody wanted the book early, and that warmed my heart, and it also made me laugh because it's so much not me. There is no chance, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, the big question almost always is, how's Callie? As I said earlier, she's having a little trouble adjusting to all these people walking by on her sidewalk. But other than that, she is doing as she has. Her paw hurts her sometimes, and we adjust the medication, which can cause gastrointestinal issues, which don't really seem to bother her that much, but we try to make sure that's all okay. and she's barking a lot, which some of it's the people walking by the street, but I will tell you the honest to goodness truth. She was driving me so crazy with her barking. I closed the doors. We closed the doors so she couldn't get to the front window, which is her favorite barking spot, and closed the drapes so she couldn't bark out the dining room window. And I was in the back of the house doing something. I heard her barking. I came out to the front. She was lying on the landing in the stairs, which is one of her favorite spots, barking at the closed front door. So I think the girl is just gonna bark. Let's see, were there any other questions right now? I don't think so. I think that's it. We will close off this. If you have more questions for me, I would be happy to try this again if this one works. We'll have to see how I did with the tech. And I don't think I'm looking at the right place. But we'll find out. And in the meantime, all of you, take good care. Be safe, be well, and I hope you're comfortable as well. Bye.